Perhaps the most anticipated car reveal of 2024 is the Mercedes W15. With the launch coming ever so close, the silver arrows have revealed more information on the 2024 Mercedes car, precisely the parts that are facing changes and upgrades. While these changes pave a bright path for Mercedes in 2024, Allison's recent comments provide a different perspective. So what are these comments made by James Allison, and what do they mean for W15's development? Well, let's find out. 2023 was evidence that Mercedes chose the wrong path with the W14, and it was time for the Brackley-based squad to try something new to be competitive once more. Ditching the zero pods was the first step in that process, along with the introduction of the new aerodynamic concept at Monaco. Expectations was a leap in performance, a step in the right direction. But the reality was, the Monaco B-Spec was just applying plasters on a wound that needed a massive surgery. Monaco showcased that the Mercedes car had many problems to be solved. Problems rooting back to the car's fundamentals like the chassis and mechanical platform. So that is where the Mercedes engineers are putting their entire focus on, led by the gladiator James Allison. Mercedes are committing for an entire concept overhaul, both aerodynamically and mechanically. First impressions by Hamilton, Russell, and Toto Wolff have been quite positive, as the three are optimistic that the W15 is moving in the right direction. But what parts are Mercedes actually changing? The main problems of the Mercedes W14 is its lack of stability, lack of enough downforce, combined with the lack of top speed and straight line efficiency. These problems were apparent in the form of tire degradation and lack of low downforce performance on tracks like Monza and Spa. So changes are in place, and the very first change will revolve around the car's chassis. Allison is pouring more focus on the chassis, as this was the limiting factor back in 2023 with the W14. The previous Mercedes monocoque was too narrow, a compromise design made to accommodate the zero pod's aerodynamic design. But with Mercedes changing course mid-season to accommodate more traditional side pods and to accommodate a brand new gearbox design, Mercedes need a wider chassis, one which has a strong base while providing the adequate mechanical stability. The change in design language of the chassis paves lots of opportunities to Mercedes, and one such opportunity is the ability to redesign the gearbox design, revolving around the casing and other components. The redesign applied on the gearbox will make the component much more compact, which in turn will reduce the car's overall drag, resulting in both better aerodynamic efficiency and high top speeds. Apart from raw speed, a compact gearbox design will lead to a significant amount of weight saving, leading to lap time gains from having a lighter car. Lighter cars will be easy to move on a straight line, also will be much more maneuverable, providing significant gains. Coming to the most visible changes, let's start with the obvious ones, the side pods. Mercedes have already committed to changes in this area in 2023, apparent from the B-Spec upgrade. But recalling past events, we have not yet seen the full potential of what Mercedes is capable of unlocking in terms of performance around the car's side pods. Evident from a comment George Russell made in season, mentioning that the W14 would not be any faster, even his team is to mount the Red Bull side pods on the Mercedes car, due to the fundamental problems lying within the car's core concept, such as the chassis structure. While it is still an unknown if Mercedes will follow the double-floor downwashing side pods design, there is something in the bag Mercedes has in terms of the side pods design, as the team confirmed that the W15 will have a different approach in this regard. In terms of suspension, Mercedes will continue with the suspension configuration of push rods front and pull rods rear. While which configuration between pull rods and push rods is better is a different debate, the configuration Mercedes has opted, as we know, is going to help the Mercedes W15, especially on curb riding aspects. While Red Bull's suspension configuration has its own advantages, Mercedes are trying to create their own, with the idea of having advantageous performance in an area where Red Bull struggle the most. The change Mercedes will incorporate into its suspension system is the introduction of anti-dive and anti-squat characteristics to ensure a stable mechanical platform is set for optimal downforce generation. But one of the biggest changes being made to the W15, something which Hamilton in particular will be happy with, is the improvements made in regard of cockpit positioning. This is something the 7-time world champion has constantly complained about, pointing out the cockpit positioning limiting his feels of the car's rear. This was once again a design compromise made to incorporate the zero pods, which now can be reverted according to a required specification. It's worth noting that the cockpit was moved back around the time of the Monaco B-Spec upgrade, but that was not enough of a change to take out the front limiting feel of the W14. So during this winter break, the engineers are going all in, moving the cockpit as further back as both drivers are satisfied with. One more change to note is the rear aerodynamic surfaces, mainly the diffuser, are all going to be much more compact than on the W14. These are changes inspired from many other running concepts on track. Inputs made by Hamilton himself following his close inspection of other cars, especially the 2023 Red Bull and McLaren cars. I'm in the factory much more often now, having meetings with all the department heads to try and motivate and encourage them all, he explained. I talk to them, show them where we need to improve and what direction we need to go in. I just try to help them be positive and to say we can do it. I also looked closely at other vehicles and asked a lot of questions just to stimulate ideas. Considering that the changes we talked about surely will transform the W15 into a different beast, it's safe for Wolff, Hamilton, and Russell to be much more optimistic about title hopes for 2024. But there seems to be a differing perspective from the Mercedes tech genius James Allison. Allison replacing Mike Elliott as technical director, working full-time on the W15. Expectations are high, and Allison himself has been teasing a comeback from Mercedes in 2024. But in a recently concluded interview, the Gladiator shared his opinions about ground effect cars, which actually are not so good for the current set of regulations. Allison directly called ground effect as a rubbish set of technical regulations, pointing out certain facts like the narrow setup window and the stiff suspension, combined resulting in cars being least enjoyable to drive. Adding on to this matter, Allison went on to say, "I'm sure I bang on about this because it's been a bugbear of mine, but I personally don't think it's a great thing," he added. "I don't think it's good having the cars operating when they leave the garage with that much space to the ground. It's hard to persuade the car to comply with different track demands with a set of rules that basically don't want to do anything except be near the ground. The nature of the cars as they produce their peak downforce close to the ground forces teams to have to run them as low as possible, and with super stiff suspension settings, it leaves teams boxed into a corner with hard-to-manage setups and means drivers are left racing cars that are not much fun. You get the person who's winning the championship by one of the biggest margins ever and has every reason to love his car to bits. And I doubt he'll tell you it's a lovely thing. It is not like it was a couple of years ago." Surely Allison is referring to Max Verstappen here, and he actually might have a point in this regard. As is the case in hand, Max has always praised the Red Bull RB19 on how it is a rocket ship, but he never has mentioned to any outlet on public that he has enjoyed driving the Red Bull ground effect cars. But vice versa, the three-time world champion made a comment at the last Miami Grand Prix, which actually sides well with Allison's opinion about ground effect cars. Because of the stiffness of the cars and how you have to run them, it takes a little bit of that magic away, especially on a street circuit where you could ride a curb here and there, he said. That probably is a bit tough around Baku, but also around Singapore. That makes it very hard. Magic or not, ground effect is here to stay, apparent from the early trends setting up for the 2026 era regulations. But one thing to note is the sudden negative opinion shared by Allison. With the W15 reveal just a month away, could Allison's sudden negativity mean that he is not too confident with how the W15 is being developed in terms of competitiveness? Personally, I don't think so. I just believe Allison is voicing his thoughts on the current set of regulations, and I hope the W15 is being developed in the adequate direction for a competitive showing within the 2024 season. But what do you guys think? To which extent do you think these changes are going to help Mercedes on the pursuit of catching Red Bull in 2024? Allison's comments. To what extent do you think that will affect the W15's competitiveness come 2024? Very much into your thoughts and perspectives in the comment section down below. And on your way down, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to get notified of our future uploads to keep yourself up to date about the 2024 Formula 1 season.